We do not condone drinking. We would never.
We do not. But if we were to, Harpoon IPA for your best basketball podcast.
Welcome back to Spittin Hoops with with myself and my boy Tony. We're back. There's been some off-season excitement, and really, we're just here to enjoy it. This is kind of the basketball nerd kind of hours of the off-season. We're talking about minimum contracts. We're talking about summer league, post-draft, second-round picks getting traded. Anthony, how are you feeling? I love this time of season. I don't know.
Oh man, Max. I'll tell you one thing. I am excited to see what some teams that we know and love got cooking up their sleeves.
Yes, sir. Looking like James Harden, baby. Or like Chef Curry. So
speaking of which, real quick, you see Ime said he quickly shot that down. Any Harden talk?
well, dude, it really makes sense. Someone of such like a high personal standard as Ime Udoka, I can understand that he wouldn't want someone like James Harden in a locker room. I mean, what a great guy Ime is, man.
What's the saying? Those who can't do teach.
So, yeah, do what I say, not like I do.
Yeah, there we go. That's it.
Something like that. This is a anti-Ime Udoka podcast, I think. I think you're pro Ime Udoka as like a basketball mind.
Yes.
But as a personal decisions type person, for him to go high road on James Harden, wild. But a good decision.
It's
like it's the results that matter. I don't the thought process is a little crazy. Like I feel like you'd have pretty good basketball reasons not to sign James Harden, but it was apparently the off the court stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what he meant.
It was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
curious.
Quickly, we're going to run through some recent moves, some absolutely league-shattering moves. We're going to talk about Dame Lillard, my favorite topic of conversation. And then we're going to talk about some summer league stuff and some other extensions that kicked in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the first thing that happened on July 2nd, since our last podcast, was Miles Bridges signed. Miles Bridges signed a 1-year qualifying offer. Obviously, he missed all of last season after he hit his wife / baby mama / fiance. I'm not exactly sure what the relationship is, but and he still has a suspension of 10 games. The reports were when he came to the negotiating table, he was looking for 25 million from the Hornets, which I thought was kind of crazy. Anthony.
So, we're spitting hoops. So I'll remove myself from the off the court stuff. But obviously, whatever punishment was doled out to him, hopefully it matches what he did. And from his basketball perspective, if we're just going to focus on that, his last playing season was great, man. He played 80 games. He shot 49% from the field, scored 20 a game, 20 and 7 a game, and 80% from the free throw line. And, he was making that team look pretty good. Him and LaMelo Ball clearly have some good chemistry together. So as it stands in terms of his playing ability, I think it's a pretty good qualifying offer. I would like you to explain what a qualifying offer is as well, if you could.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, for a guy that good to get $8 million, I think that's a good deal with the off the court stuff not included. But I want to hear what like that actually means.
So basically, like when you're drafted, right, you get some sort of rookie deal or your first contract coming out of the G League. It's two-way guys. Once they hit free agency, a lot of these guys are restricted free agents, and just based off their contract, they didn't get an extension. But since it's their first contract, they're again, restricted free agents. So at that point, when you hit free agency, depending on your salary from the previous years, the league administers like a qualifying offer. So this team has to make you a 1-year qualifying offer of a certain amount of money, if that makes sense. And they can choose to or not to make this offer. If they choose not to make this offer, you immediately go to unrestricted free agency. Sorry. But if they do make the offer, you're a restricted free agent. So the Hornets made this offer to him to keep his rights as a restricted free agent, match anything else that happened, while negotiating an extension, because Miles Bridges was at the end of his rookie 4-year deal, right? This is that was his last year. So he had this now he's a restricted free agent. They couldn't agree to a deal. He doesn't think the thing is that like he doesn't think he can get an offer elsewhere, or else he wouldn't have signed the qualifying offer. He's going to play for 1 year. He has no trade clause. As a part of accepting the qualifying offer, you get a no trade clause in a lot of circumstances. So he will have a no trade clause for just 1 year, and then he'll be an unrestricted free agent next year. At which point, they'll figure their situation out. Long explanation, but I hope that made sense.
A good one. Sounds like he's going to be playing his butt off to try to get a big contract next year.
Yeah, exactly. This is like a prove it situation where the Hornets can still retain his rights for a year. And then even at the end of next year, they'll be able to go over the salary cap and, sign him to whatever, should they want to keep him. So yeah, that happened with Miles Bridges, along with a nice little cap explanation. And then right after, my team made a great signing of Corey Joe. As Drake once said, he got a ring, brought it home like he's Corey Joe. And he's coming home. It's actually not home, but he's coming home to a team that's going to bring him a ring. The Golden State Warriors. I'm hyped about this signing. I feel like it's just like the attitude change of the signing of like, we're going to sign old guys. I'm like, finally, thank you. I don't think he's that good, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, he's a great plug and play kind of guy. And when you have a guy like that who's not, as old, they play fewer minutes. So I think the injury concerns go down a little bit. If one of your Steph Curry has a bit of an injury in the regular season history, and Chris Paul has, his playoff woes with injuries. So this is definitely a guy who at least I feel like we can trust to facilitate the offense. High IQ guy, has been around the league for a while. So great signing for you guys for sure.
Yeah, like he probably won't play any playoff minutes given there's CP3 and Steph. Like he'll probably play 0 playoff minutes. But if CP3 is hurt, rest day, Steph hurt, rest day, he might play 15, 20. In which case you just know he's not going to turn the ball over. Like he doesn't really do anything that special except for he just doesn't turn the ball over, which makes me very happy. I can't wait. Like even if we're not as good as I hope we are, it's going to be good for my like mental health that we're not turning the ball over 7 times per fourth quarter. Like, I don't know.
I can empathize with you on that one, my friend.
Yes, you can. On July 3rd, we did talk about this on the last pod. No Anthony Edwards extension had been signed off the rip. But on July 3rd, Anthony Edwards signed his $260 million rookie max extension. So he'll be a T-Wolf bar any trading for the next 5 years. There's no player option in the last year, from what I can understand, which is interesting. I don't know why the T-Wolves didn't give him that.
I kind of want to take this on a bit of a spin, and so I'm curious what your take is, because I feel like you have some good follow-up thoughts on this. I'd seen some content had come out about like recently about loyalty, etc., and how contracts have just changed dramatically due to the CBA. And it really feels like we're in this era where even if you sign a guy for 5 years, it doesn't, especially once they reach this caliber of player, it doesn't feel like you really have him unless, he's in a great spot. He's a kind of Steph Curry model of guy where, you're winning anyways. And so it's great that he has this rookie max deal. At the same time, that just makes me think, okay, I think there's probably 3 years of security. And then if he gets fed up with the Timberwolves, he could request a trade. This isn't the classic. You don't see those 7-year deals anymore. You don't see those 10-year deals anymore that we used to see. So I'm curious what you kind of think about that aspect of this extension in general.
Yeah. So actually, Brian Windhorst, I watched this video of him a few days ago, and he did a great job of kind of explaining this concept. And I hate on Brian Windhorst's like sources and reporting, but he did great with this. He's kind of explaining how like in the past you had like 7-year deals, and then there was a new CBA after the lockout, and they lowered the amount of years to to 5 because 8 was just too much. People were getting 8-year deals, and it was a mess. And then they gave the money a lot more structure. And I believe in the 2010 CBA with like rookie deals, rookie extensions, etc. The thing is, there's kind of like an issue of like you want the incumbent team to have an advantage money wise when re-signing a player, right? Because then it'll incentivize the players to stay in the smaller market. But the issue is that they've incentivized it so much that like if I'm Ant Edwards, it would not make like the T-Wolf situation is bad, but even imagine if they were even worse. Like they were the worst team in the league. He would still sign it because the T-Wolves can offer him an extra guaranteed year and basically $5 million extra per year on the contract. So the T-Wolves have a better chance of retaining their asset, but there's a better chance that Anthony Edwards is just signing that deal to then get the money and ask for a trade later. Based off of his leverage over the team, which is if they don't give him that full max, he's going to leave in free agency and they can't protect the asset. So it's kind of this feedback loop like that because they incentivize players to stay with small market teams. And I just think this is how it's going to work. Like, I just don't really see an end to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully what it kind of comes down to is like, I don't know what the newest CBA came out with in terms of like a Ben Simmons type of situation where a guy straight up says, I'm not showing up to play, or a James Harden situation where is he wearing a fat suit? Like what's going on with that? But obviously if you demand a trade and you want one, they're like, bro, it's in your contract. Like you got to play with us, and we'll trade you with a year or 2 years left because we know that you're not going to re-sign with us. But for those first couple of years, you're going to have to stay. So it's just maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's like, damn, everybody's hopping teams, but it is an interesting kind of backfire scenario that you just brought up.
I mean, and it's so I think the Harden situation, it might be the epitome of this, right? So the only reason he would opt into his contract is if he didn't think any of the teams with cap space were going to offer him a contract, right? Or else he would have opted out and just like run up his market value, probably sign a max, whatever. I think no teams wanted him like at a max deal or even close, right? So he was like, screw it, I'm gonna opt in to get my money, and then I'm gonna ask for a trade to go to somewhere else that's going to give up assets for me, so they'll have to sign me to an extension. And then it's like the Harden, like the Dame situation, to be honest, I understand. Dame should have asked for a trade like 3 years ago. Like that's why that situation is annoying to me. Like it has nothing to do with like Dame himself there. But like Harden opting in and immediately requesting a trade. You don't opt into a contract to stay with a team. If you're about to request a trade, you could just go be a free agent. Like,
yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Hilarious.
And I'm sure it was. I feel like for him, he's looking at the writing on the wall, saying, "Can I get this money?" Like you had said. I was referring to actually Houston James Harden in that scenario where he was just playing terribly and like actively playing worse than he could, and then he gets to Brooklyn and goes crazy.
Oh no, absolutely. No, that is James Harden. Also, there's those two and the example of him on the Nets requesting for like like you're right with your example for sure. It's just such a heinous situation, right? Like again, I can't fault. We'll get to Dame later. Actually. Should we do this right now?
Man, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Dame, like the thing about Dame, he's totally within his rights to request a trade, right? But he's also been signing these crazy extensions over and over and over again. And he really could have had a chance to really leverage himself in a trade. But instead, Dame is asking for a trade, asking to go to one particular team. And in reality, I think he's in year 2 of a 5-year max deal, technically, or something like that. He's got 3-4 years left on his contract. He should not really have any leverage to do this, and he does. And the thing is, he's well within his rights to ask for a trade. But the whole one team demand, etc., is a little ridiculous. Like, and like, do it behind the scenes. Like, tell other teams I won't extend with you, and then they'll be like, okay, but I still have you for 4 years. Like, I'm still gonna go trade for you. But it is what it is.
So he has 2 more years on his deal.
This year and next.
So this year, and then his next year is a player exercise. Is that a player option?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess that is a bit of leverage he has, right? So like, but I think that leverage is in terms of, they have until the trade deadline where they can make that decision, right? So they could
Scroll
also
down. Scroll down on the
scroll
page.
down. Oh, let me scroll. Look
Upcoming
at that.
contract extension.
Oh wow. Okay, so he is yeah. So maybe he doesn't have yeah, upcoming contract extension. So he's signed in with the Rockets with a player option in
The Blazers
26, 27. But so 1, 2, 3. So he has 3 more years guaranteed with the Blazers.
after this year. Or no. He has 3 more years guaranteed,
Yeah,
and he has the player option,
yes.
which I think Dame
Then
Lillard. I think he will be picking up his player option when he's 36 at
when he's
$65 million.
36, right?
Yeah,
When he's on
exactly.
Gary Payton Miami Heat mode.
Yeah, it's kind of insane that he has this leverage, but I mean, he's making leverage out of nothing. If he gets to Miami, so be it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think where we kind of look at him a little bit differently is he did stay with his team for so long through thick and thin. So I think we tend to give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe that's where part of the leverage comes from. But if I'm the Blazers and I don't get a good offer from the Heat, then I'm like, bro, you have had so many windows of opportunity to ask for trades, and we're not in those meetings. But maybe I'm bad for assuming this, but I have to assume that Damian Lillard is also aware that the Blazers are aware of when certain timelines last offseason, the offseason before, when the stars were aligning for him to be able to go sign with a team that he wants. So for him just to go, yo, figure it out right now, like it's kind of unrealistic. And I don't know. Maybe he just like was like, okay, people keep saying this. I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. And now I'm gonna do it. And I look bad if I like back off of it or something. But I don't know. I think it's like the Heat clearly don't have the right assets to offer you at the moment, because if they did, maybe they would have done it already. And so it's a weird position, man.
Well, the thing is, it's not he didn't just do this offseason. He's done that like 5 off seasons in a row, basically. Like, remember when they traded for Covington? He held them. He was in the offseason. He was like, I might ask for a trade if you don't improve the team. They trade 2 firsts for Covington, and then like the next trade doesn't get 2 firsts for Jeremy Grant, or like things like that. It's like at some point, that's not how you build a team, by throwing your first round pick every year at some semi not really good established role guy. Like
Yeah,
Dame
totally.
they never even found the second star around Dame. Like CJ was not good enough to be the second best guy on a championship team, in my opinion. Yeah,
Definitely.
like so he didn't even give them a chance to find the second best guy on his team. He was just like, oh, I might leave. And then they just, instead of waiting and having all 8 picks to go trade for Paul George, they used 2 picks a year, got Nurkic, then they got Covington, then they got Jeremy Grant. It's like, what does this amount to? Nothing. And I think it's Dame's doing. A lot of that is Dame's doing. If they had a proper tanking season at some point, like the Warriors had to have a proper tanking season too, to like replenish the assets and whatnot. Like it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird position. Um, it's I guess to Dame's credit, this is the first time he's publicly requested a trade. He's
yeah.
definitely put the pressure on the Blazers organization before, but I'm like, that's where I'm at. Like, essentially, what you said is the case. Like, he's never publicly asked for a trade, but he's always been on podcasts talking about how he really wants this team to get better,
I
things
want
like
to
that.
win.
I want to win, and if you've seen it happen since, let's say 2019, when they got swept by the Warriors, was like the last good year that they had or whatever, right? And then they have the bubble season. He goes in the bubble, he goes crazy in the bubble, but then they lose in the first round of the Lakers. After that, that's when you start to kind of look at the writing on the wall and say, where are the pieces that we can even bring in that is going to make this a successful team? I don't see it. If we're going to demand a trade and be upfront about it, let's do it then.
No, and he should have, because he also wasted years on his career. I mean, like he's a small point guard who he is pretty athletic, and to be honest, I think he's a little bit better than people think defensively. Like I think if he gets
Sure. Yeah.
traded, he'll be fine for like a year or two.
Yeah.
But Dame's not going to be
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry at age 37. Like he's gonna. I think there'll be a big dip. He might be a spot up shooter, but I don't think he's gonna be taking guys off the dribble, step back threes from 40. Like especially not in
Probably.
year 4 of his player option. So it's like he costed himself years by. But it's like I can't blame him for wanting to be loyal, but it's like the way he was loyal almost like it was almost like I don't know. The thing is I feel bad for Dame. He's like damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So I like it's also as
Yeah.
a player, it was impossible for him to win this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and maybe it's just like a bit of like, and obviously I haven't heard him come out and say anything himself. So we all know how these words get twisted and stuff. But maybe it's a situation of like just wait for the season to start, see how teams are looking. The value of players switches so quickly based on even months of a season, right? Like we can see a guy in the playoffs just go crazy and all of a sudden they get signed to some big contract. So maybe the numbers will be there by the time February rolls around, and then they can make a trade and go for it. But I do think it's an interesting take. I'm very curious what about Miami he loves so much more than any other team that he would refuse a trade to any other team. Like that's where I'm kind of stuck.
Well, I just think if you're Dame, like, and you ask for the trade, the nightmare is to get traded to the Jazz, where you're just basically Portland 2.0 almost. Like
Oh
I think
yeah, if
he's
that.
yeah. And the thing is, if he had asked for a trade and was like, I only want to go to the Suns or the Celtics, that's like almost like he's not the 1A or 1B guy, honestly, on either of those teams, too. So almost like by process of I'm sure if like Denver traded for him, he'd be fine with it. Like, right? Like, I'm sure if Denver
Yeah.
traded for him, he'd be happy. It's just not going to happen. Or like I think his nightmare is where he ends up in a situation where he's the best player on the team again. Like, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's and maybe he could be the one. I do think, for the example of at least the Celtics, I could see him in the fourth quarters of tight games, him being turning into a 1A guy. But like you're saying, he won't be the focal point, which is fine. That's fine. That's not what the Celtics need. But we might address that later on too.
Yeah, I just wonder if like the Celtics win a chip with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're almost by default going to get like a lot more credit than Dame just because
Totally.
they've been to like 4 straight Eastern Conference Finals, or like whatever, not 4 straight, but like 4 out of how many years? And then like the Heat, right? Like just the perception is different, and there's also a different thing with like I would argue Tatum's like a top 5, top six guy, like. Jimmy Butler is like kind of one of these turn it on players, and there's something cool about 2 top 10 guys kind of teaming up that I think like history would kind of like look at them more fondly. If that makes any sense. I don't think Dame's thinking about
Yeah.
all this. I actually don't. I don't think Dame's thinking about all this. Actually, now this is just all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're the ones spitting hoops about him.
Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, one of the things that to your point is like, at least before the Jimmy Butler ankle injury against New York, if you ask me, put a gun to my head, say, who do I want more, Jason Tatum or Jimmy Butler in this game? I'm going to say Jimmy Butler. Like, I just am, because I still have yet to see that. I've seen Tatum go off in very important game sixes and stuff, but it's like, phew, okay, cool. He showed up. It's not like, it's, I want to be able to expect that, and I haven't been able to expect that from him. And I feel like Dame, although there have been some playoff games where he's definitely not, all that the myth around him is. I feel like he can kind of offset some of that. So at least in that sense, like, yeah, like the 2 top 10 guys is kind of a cool angle. And at the same time, like if I'm Dame and I'm looking at who do I want at the end of a fourth quarter of a close, tight playoff game, I'm looking over at Boston. I'm like, I just seen what you guys have done for the last 2 years in the most important stages of the games, and you fall apart. So like maybe he can be the guy to kind of help out with that, but maybe he just doesn't want to deal with that headache at the stage in his career.
I do think like the demanding for one team thing is probably a little bit overblown. Like I'm sure he's totally fine going to Denver and Boston. It's just like a play to get more leverage. Like I'm sure if that ended up happening, he wouldn't be like pissed, you know. So I don't know.
Totally.
Anyways, that's a lot of Dame talk.
Yeah. So
Moving
let's
back.
talk about a very important new player that got signed.
Yes, a very important signing. 1 year, 5 million. Mason Plumlee back to the Clippers, I believe. Right? I don't misremember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought this was good. Good leverage for the Clippers now if they want to dangle Zubats in a Harden trade as like a salary match, things like that. I think it's kind of interesting, and I think he's really good. I wanted him on the Warriors, but he's not that good, to be honest.
Yeah. And he might be a bit redundant with Looney. Not to say that they can't switch minutes during the regular season, but in the playoffs, like, do you really need like him as well? If you're playing against Jokic, absolutely, that's where you need him. I like Plumlee a lot. He was on my fantasy, a couple of my fantasy teams last year, and he was a solid like 10 and 8 guy, and really consistent. So not only is he good kind of maneuvering chip for the Clippers, he's also just a great like guy to have on your team, I think, in general. So great signing for him, great value.
Yeah, great move by the Clippers. I have nothing more to add. It's just another role guy that they'll have on their bench that won't play that much, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
From there, we did get some interesting moves on July 5th. So Grant Williams agrees to a sign and trade deal going to Dallas, which Dallas really doesn't send back much. It's mostly creates a trade exception for Boston. But 4 years, 53 million. That's the Austin Reeves contract, you know?
That is the Austin Reeves contract, bro. And I mean, a lot of times this is fit. And part of me is a little bit disappointed because although he didn't play very much at certain points in the season, I did that, and I hated him, you know. I hated what happened after he started talking to Jimmy Butler in game 2 against us, because then Jimmy went nuclear. But we don't like, at least he was talking. You know what I mean? Like, he has a bit of that kind of tough guy attitude that I think the Mavs are going to benefit from. I know he's not a tall guy, but he is a big guy, and they do need size. So I think for the Mavs, it's a solid fit. He's a great 3-and-D player. I mean, he's Reggie Bullock on steroids. I wouldn't have mind getting Reggie Bullock in this.
Oh yeah, because he did go to the Spurs. Instead. Yeah,
he went to the Spurs. So like, unless I would assume the Celtics, and we'll probably talk about this, the Celtics might be gearing up for something with all these picks they're acquiring. So hopefully that's the trade. Otherwise, I would have loved Reggie Bullock with us. But as for the Mavs, I think it's a solid deal. You know, I don't hate it. I don't know what their cap deal is, so maybe you know more about that. But I think it's okay.
Yeah. So this is like they were able to do this via like cap space and a trade exception, if I remember correctly. And then we'll get to Matisse Thybulle later, but that was Matisse Thybulle's was a mid-level exception. So that was fine. They could be over the cap for that. But for this, I mean, I just don't think it's that good of a contract. I kind of think the Celtics just didn't match. Like, I think the Celtics just were like, do we want Grant Williams on our team for 12 million, like 4 years from now, especially when we have everyone else locked up? How many minutes are there if you have, like, especially front court minutes? If you're going to use them as like a true small forward, sure. But how many front court minutes are there left if you have Porzingis, Rob Will, and Horford? And if 2 of those guys are injured and there's a lot of minutes for Grant Williams, you're probably chalked anyways, right? So, but yeah, Bullock, no getting back Bullock was a little weird. It was like a little too cost cutter for me by the Celtics. I would have liked to see them at least get Bullock back, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's him.
Moving on. Hinted at this, Matisse Thybulle signs a offer sheet, 3 years, 33 million with the Mavericks. The Blazers take about a few hours, 5 to 10 hours, I forgot, to match. So he will be remaining with the Blazers. Boney, I don't know about you. I thought this is kind of a weird move by both teams. Like, if I'm if I'm the Mavericks, couldn't you use that money and kind of like I'd rather go get like Saric, who's still a free agent, and Oubre. Like, give me both of those guys on a team that's needing depth for the price that I'm paying for Thibault. But then the Blazers match, even though they're about to trade Dame. Now you have a guy locked up for 3 years. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fit wise, I don't hate the idea of a defensive minded guy on the Mavs. I've
Yeah.
been preaching this is what the Mavericks need. The Mavericks do need wing defenders as well as size, and they got size in the draft, which is good. They got Lively, they got Holmes, but I thought they could have used this. Yeah, the number's a bit high. Where my surprise really came in was like you were saying with the Blazers, like what are we doing here? What
Yeah.
we first we do Jeremy Grant, and then we double down for another guy who hasn't been able to reliably hit a jump shot in his entire career for 11 mil. When you can use that money, you can use that cap space for other stuff. Like I just don't get it. What maybe he's providing them some sort of defensive identity that they could use because maybe that's they have a lot of shooting, so they're set on that. They don't necessarily need another guy. So maybe that's the rationale. But even still, I struggle to figure this one out.
Yeah, I don't. I agree, man. I don't get the vision with Portland there. Like already the Jeremy Grant deal was bad enough, and maybe you can like rationale and be like, oh, we had to keep him because we thought Dame was gonna stay. But
Right.
you like Dame just requested first trade. Like that can't be the rationale for matching Thibault. I do kind of think though, some team like Thibault's defense is almost too good where like some team might always be willing to trade for him come deadline time, you know. Um
Right.
so I think like maybe it was just an asset management sort of thing. Cause that 11 million, as much as that is 11 million, like in cap space that you're not using elsewhere, that's like a trading thing. Could be valuable. Doesn't cost too much. And I did like the fit on the Mavericks did make sense though. Cause like with Kyrie and Luca,
Yeah.
at some point, Thibault, if you could just shoot like 36% from the corner three, like that's good enough, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Makes up for it. So
Yeah. But yeah, Thibault isn't great, to be honest. I think like his defense is good, but you know, it is what it is.
yeah,
Big fan of him though. Like I think he is very cool. Hopefully he figures that shot
for
out.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah. Moving on. July 6th, we get another interesting extension. This is DeJounte Murray for 4 years, 120 million. I'm a big DeJounte Murray fan. I thought this was cheap.
Bro. I'll tell you what. That when I saw this headline, my jaw hit the floor. I could not believe it. So we got a guy who's averaging 2 seasons off of almost a triple double season, averaging 25 and 6. Fantastic defender, all NBA level talent, and he's on a hell of a deal. He is on an absolute hell of a deal. So even they can go in a few directions here. If he takes the next step, then cool. If the Trey DeJounte thing isn't working out, they can play with either direction that they want to go here because he is such an incredible asset now. If they do want to flip him for another guy and pair him with Trey, they can make that trade if they want to immediately to a team that's contending and they're worried about going over the second apron. What are you or the second curtain? I want to hear what you have to say in a second. Or
Or
if they don't like Trey, which is where
yeah,
they could go anyway, just advocating for both sides. If they don't like Trey, they can release or not release, but then they have their guy for super, super, super cheap, and they can try to find a matching contract. So, I mean, I think either way, the fact that he signed for this, I'm a little surprised he signed for this low.
yeah, this is an incredible deal. We're on the same page here, Anthony. I mean, dude, Jeremy Grant got an extra year and $2 million extra per year compared to DeJounte.
Yeah.
Like, and DeJounte had leverage. DeJounte had leverage. Like, they gave up assets for him. Like last offseason. Like, that's shocking. I think you can make a strong argument that DeJounte is about as good as Trae Young. That's going to throw some people off. I think Trae Young has better shot making abilities, but I don't view Trae Young as a guy who just yet can be the alpha on a championship team. Maybe he becomes that at some point. So, but I think DeJounte
Yeah.
could be the second best player on a championship team potentially. I mean, he's putting up 21 a game on 35% from three. You'd like to see that number a little bit higher, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he's also kind of forced to do a lot of floor spacing on a team that like always plays with a non-shooting center on the Hawks, right? He was also an all
Right.
defensive team member, like his second year in the
Right.
NBA, and like last year's steals leader, all-star last year. Like they got him for
Right.
30 million. This is like a spectacular deal. A spectacular
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. Hats off to the Hawks for a great contract on their part.
And I'm just saying, you front the contract, make it start at like 34, like then it's like 30, like whatever, scaling down. And in that year four of the contract, you trade Trae Young, sign a free agent, like build up a new squad. If you need a GM, Atlanta Hawks, let me know. We're taking DeJounte to
Yeah.
the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're taking DeJounte to the top,
Yeah.
baby.
The
With
numbers.
that,
Yeah. The numbers are crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
With that.
yeah, with that, moving on. So we covered all the current topics now, and then I have some stuff we want to talk about. Get off our chest. First of all, this is just me really quick. CBA came out about a day into free agency or a day before free agency, something like that. Um, I think the players got destroyed on the CBA from what I can tell so far. And also the release time of the CBA, like it feels like the league was like, yo, like if I don't know, it kind of makes me feel like the players didn't like read through it when they got it. The 670-page document, like I know CJ McCollum doesn't have that much time, but like holy crap, man. I don't know.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I honestly I haven't dug too deeply into the CBA. The bare bones of what I understand is that right, we have the second apron deal, which is or so I keep saying apron, second curtain deal that is going to force teams to be much more sparing with who they sign, which is going to definitely create this massive gap between like the almost like the haves and the have-nots of the leagues.
Yeah.
So in one sense, like you are having you're having more, I guess, guys getting paid star money. But on the other hand, there are just these guys who might be these like wily vets and they're looking around, they're like, hey, sorry, like we only have a couple mil to throw at you. If you want it, come get it. So it's an interesting that's an interesting angle. I think the release is definitely weird, considering how important free agency is too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. What any other takes too that you got?
No, that was about it. I think you're completely right. But yeah, I think in general the players like really prioritize. We just need a bigger piece of the pie, like in the overall money. We don't really care that much how we get it, especially if you're gonna. Because the thing about the second apron, like teams want that to like kind of limit spending across the owners, but the players don't want that because they're limiting spending, right? So they're like, we need a bigger piece of the pie elsewhere, in general. So that's
Right.
like all max deals and whatnot. So. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. We'll see how the CBA develops and how that ends up
Yeah.
rolling out. Next up, summer league action. Wemby is playing tonight. I will be going to a bar to watch it, to watch my French brother dominate some summer league action. I'm hyped. The Thomas and Mack Center, I think that's where they're playing at UNLV. There was like half a K line was worth of people outside of the arena like 2 hours before. And like I think the Jazz Twitter account like tweeted and was like, "Yeah, man, we're so happy everyone came out to see us." Like as a joke, like knowing full and well people are there to see Wemby, but yeah, crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, this is going to be super fun. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see him go out. I'm glad that he wants to play. And it's just so good. It's great for the city of San Antonio as well. And to have that guy, to have him in, to have them join like the legacy, the fraternity that San Antonio is fantastic. It's going to be so cool to see him out there. And this is one of the most hyped first round prospects of all time. So it's great.
Okay, I have a question. If you're Greg Popovich, do you want him playing in this game in the summer league?
I mean, after seeing what happened to Chet Holmgren last year when he played against LeBron and he got his foot messed up and he was out, I guess I worry a bit about that. At the same time, I think you got to kind of let your franchise player be your franchise player to a certain extent, and go after it. So I could totally see him after a couple of games being like, "All right, you know, do you feel good? Can we chill?" But I think it's cool of him to be like, "Yo, hey, I have faith in you. I have a trust in you. Go for it."
Yeah, I'm like a little concerned because his like French league season went long, but I almost think it just bodes better that he wants to play in these games. Like, I'm sure if he came to the Spurs and like, yo, I'm like a little like my body's feeling a little rusty. I'm not trying to play the full summer league, which to be fair, he missed like the opening games. But I don't know. I think it's kind of dope. Like he doesn't need to do this. Like, right. So it's pretty cool.
Bruh. Not
Uh,
only is it dope, never would I ever have um have Victor Wemby not knowing who Britney Spears is on my bingo card for 2023.
I'm not gonna
Like
lie.
how
If I
crazy is
saw Britney Spears in person, I would not recognize her. I don't think.
I probably wouldn't either. I probably wouldn't either.
We're just kind of
And
we're too young for that. Yeah.
we might be a little bit too young for that. And if you're Wemby, not a lot of 7'4" dudes walking around here. And he's really well known. So I mean I mean it's just wild. Like, did you hear what he said in his video about what was
Yeah,
going
he
on? Like
had
he
no
didn't even
idea. Yeah.
he just thought some person was trying to get a hold of him and like kind of grabbing. I don't care if it was the grabbing or just a tap or whatever it is. And the security guard, don't shove a lady. But I outside of that, I think it's pretty hilarious that he just had no idea who she was.
Yeah, I just don't think it's Wemby. That whole situation is not Wemby's fault. Like if it's anyone's fault, it's the security guard. Also, it was a team
Right.
provided security guard, not even Wemby's like personal
Right.
one or something.
Yeah.
Like, and if you
Yeah.
saw the interview in the morning, like the day after, right? He's like, yeah, man, like I just woke up to a bunch of phone calls. Like I was like, what's going on? Like he does not understand this, which is hilarious, but I don't know. What a heinous time. He should play some.
Yeah.
They should have him sing some Britney Spears like Ricky Hazing like right before the game.
Yeah.
Just troll the crap out
Hit
of it.
me,
That would be
baby, one more time.
no, that would be so bad. That would especially after like this first stuff last season, bro. They could not be
Yeah.
rocking with. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Moving on, some more summer league action. Brandon Miller,
Mm,
nobody's
mm.
favorite second overall pick. He's been bad. And I watched one of these games where he played against the Warriors, and he made Lester Quinones, who was our two-way guy last year, look like an absolute god. Brandon Miller ended up with like, I don't know, horrible stats. I forgot, like 8 points or something. So far in the summer league, up until this point of like when we're recording, he's 12, 5, and 5 pretty much, with also 5 turnovers and like 6 fouls. And summer league rules are different. You can have more than 6 fouls a game. Uh, I don't want to read too much into summer league. I think you probably share that opinion, but I do think the summer league can kind of tell you where people are at like developmentally. And like when Keegan Murray goes to the summer league, I almost expect him to be dominating the summer league. And you see that, you're like, good, like this is good.
Right. Right.
Brandon Miller at this point, he doesn't look like coordinated or like up to game speed enough to potentially be like a rookie of the year candidate or something. You can still see like a lot of the physical traits and you can see why he went second overall. But so far, I would be very shocked if he ended up the season as like rookie of the year or something. That's not to say he's like screwed for the rest of his career, right? It just might take a little bit more time than like some people might previously expected, in my opinion.
When you say rookie of the year, are we saying let's take Wemby out of the equation? Like you take a Thompson twin, you take Scoot, you take Chet Holmgren, you take any of those over him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of odds, Thompson twins, I'm not sure just yet. Because like in terms of odds, but I think Wemby, Chet, and even Scoot, because Scoot's also going to get way more of an opportunity than a lot of these guys to kind of
Yeah.
like take the reins. Like Amen Thompson's going to have to like, dude, he's going to get 5 shots a game They got KPJ, Fred
Right.
VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green. Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried a man gets buried on that team a little bit. But you know,
Dylan Brooks better not be taking more shots than Amen Thompson.
oh, he definitely will. Actually, like, mark this down.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks at the NBA trade deadline of this year will be averaging more shots a game than Amen Thompson. That's a take. Anyways,
That's a
that's a take. I'll put it.
yeah,
I'll
that,
look at the camera too, so you know it's official. But Amen Thompson still, and I still like Amen Thompson better than Brandon Miller. But anyways, Brandon Miller, I just think is a little bit further behind what I might have expected him to be. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. We talked about this offline, but to be fair, I think I only referenced guys that were absolute stars in the summer league and then didn't really pan out as well when they got to the NBA. But I just remember seeing Ben Simmons hitting jump shots. I remember Kyle Kuzma being the summer league MVP. I remember all these guys just going on absolutely dominating in the summer league. And then, Kyle Kuzma is a good player. Ben Simmons went on to be a good player for a few seasons, but it just doesn't always translate necessarily. So maybe it's a bit worrying how he's looking. Maybe he's getting adjusted to playing against a lot of these guys are pros. I mean, it is a different league. He's not playing against college kids anymore. Some of the summer league guys are 25, 26. So there is that aspect to it. Maybe I'm just a bit more of an apologist than you are, but I don't really look too much into a couple of games, but I hear what you mean.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of expected him to be a little bit further along, a little bit more imposing, like athletically. And like
Yeah,
he's not there yet. Like that development will come. Like Brandon Miller will be in this league for a while, right? Like at worst, he's going to be a good 3-and-D guy in my opinion. But just off the rip, that was a thing that I noticed. And with that, the Hornets. I mean, that's a
Mm.
you got Brandon Miller, you got LaMelo, you got Miles Bridges is not going to be on that team a year from now. You got Gordon Hayward. What a like absolute mosh pit of randos.
Mark Williams,
Yeah, like
who's solid.
this is good. No, Mark
I
Williams is
mean,
good.
yeah,
Yeah. James Booknight. I'm like, dude, what is this absolute like?
they are they are a Tuesday night stressful day at work. Let me crack a Harpoon IPA and watch a Hornets Pacers game on League Pass. That's what kind of team I think we're looking at here.
Yeah, and like if you're going to that like game where your team is playing the Hornets, you're gonna have fun because like it's just gonna be random
Yeah,
crap happening. Like the Hornets might win by
yeah,
30 and they might lose by 60. You never know. Um,
yeah.
Moving on, we talked about Dame. But Jaylen Brown, no extension signed yet. Anthony, how you feeling?
A little less worried than maybe the average Celtic. I don't tend to overreact to these things. Maybe they're just trying to figure out numbers. Maybe they're just trying to figure out like when the right time is. Maybe he's on vacation. He'd really really have to hate playing in Boston to not want to to re-sign with us. So just based off of how much more money he can make, and if that's where his heart is, I mean, hey, what when you're that wealthy, what's the difference between a few $1,000,000, I guess? But at the same time, we typically see that that's the incentive of why you're the team that you can extend with has you. So I'm not too worried at the moment. I can empathize with the fact that his name just keeps getting tossed in trade rumors consistently. And he's like, bro, come on. Can we stop throwing my name in trade rumors? At the same time, I see the other side of it. It's like, dude, Kevin Durant is a better player than you. So maybe that's why he was in those trade rumors. Damian Lillard arguably is a better player than you. So maybe that's why he's in these trade rumors. So I don't look into it too much. And the how he played in the playoffs, I still want to be able to see more from him, and he's young, so I'd rather have him than a 33-year-old Damian Lillard probably at this point. But that's kind of where my scatterbrain thoughts about Jaylen Brown land.
Yeah, I mean, I think he probably ends up signing an extension. Is it the full supermax amount? Like maybe not. But they kind of just made a cost-cutting move with Grant Williams. I kind of feel like it's probably going to come. I just wonder, does that affect his trade value on the other end? That's going to be an interesting concept to kind of see moving forward. Is like, even though Jaylen Brown is like incredibly good, does the fact that his contract is it's so massive, like, does that limit his trade value at some point? That's something to see once he signs an extension and a few years down the road and whatnot. And maybe they win a chip and maybe they win a chip and he never gets traded, right? Like that's the ideal scenario.
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
I'm just curious about that dynamic. Because this is like this Jaylen Brown contract is really gonna be this first one that's like the super max plus plus, and it's kind of on a guy who's not like the alpha,
Yeah. Right. I mean, it could be one of the biggest contracts in NBA history, right?
I think it will be. I think it will be.
Yeah, that's wild. That is wild. I remember a few years ago when it was Mike Conley who had the biggest contract in NBA history.
Yeah.
It's never the best player, you know what I mean? It's never a top 10 guy.
It's the guy who can negotiate it the most, always.
That's true.
But to be fair, whenever Steph Curry signs his next full extension, he'll reclaim that. Should he end up even signing one after this one? It's been so like he's got 3-4 years left. If Clay had kept up being good, Clay would have got the record extension probably again next year. But Clay is too old now. Anyways, another note that I had is probably the last big note that we have is what are the Raptors doing? What are the Raptors doing? If Scotty Barnes isn't like a plus player this year, they're gonna be bad again. Like I feel like it's a lot of sidestepping instead of going up or down,
Yeah. I think we talked about them a couple episodes ago, maybe last episode, where like where do we think their ceiling is? But let's look at their roster. Their starting point guards might probably will be Schroeder. Then they got OG, they got Scotty Barnes, they got Siakam, they got Jakob Poeltl. On the bench, they got Boucher, they got Grady Dick, Gary Trent, Precious.
It's like a lot of guys. These are basketball players, though. These aren't like absolute trash cans, right? Like these are good basketball players.
These are good players, yeah.
Yeah, but
it's like a version of the Clippers without two stars. Like it's just a bunch of talent that kind of gets like rotated, but none of them are. I mean, you can maybe argue Siakam at times as a top 20 guy, maybe, but other than that, you don't really. That's not going to take you over the top. So, what are they doing? Curious to see. Maybe they're ready. Maybe they're gearing up for some sort of trade. Maybe a certain team in green has been collecting draft picks so that they could go for one of these players and they could start their rebuild. Who knows?
I mean, that would be fascinating. That would be, let's say the Celtics take the first that they got in the Porzingis trade, and then using their exception and maybe something else, they go to the Raptors and go get Anunoby. Like now we're having a conversation. Like that would be fascinating to me. But to be honest, I kind of just think the Raptors don't want to make a trade. I think it's kind of impossible right now to trade with the Raptors. Their asking prices, like from what's being reported, have seemed a little insane. And the team kind of isn't that good. Like I think Pirtle's good individually. He's on the team for the next 3 years for $20 million. Gary Trent, I think he's pretty good individually. Really weird fit, Gary Trent on the Raptors, in my opinion. As good as Gary Trent is, and as good as the Raptors kind of have been with him, multi-year extension. It's like weird fits. They don't have like a primary creator outside of Scotty Barnes. Like Scotty Barnes has to be the point guard this year, really. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, unless they give the reins to Schroeder.
But at that point, you should have just re-signed Van Fleet. Like, if you were gonna run it back, you should have really ran it back. I also kind of think Van Fleet wanted to leave too, though. To be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you saw the writing on the wall. They're not going anywhere for now.
And then also he had talked about on like some podcasts, and he felt like his like usage on ball had really dipped, even though they kind of want to chip with a lot of on ball Van Fleet. Like in the playoffs, like when they won the chip, it was a lot of on ball Van Fleet, a lot of like, I mean, he could catch and shoot, obviously, but Pretty interesting
Yeah.
situation.
That and having his kid.
Yes, he did.
That's when the whole switch flipped for that guy. He went from averaging 8 a game to 18 a game, just like that. It's crazy.
Insane.
Makes me want to be a father, man. Maybe that'll increase my productivity by 60% or 160% or whatever it is.
Nah, makes me want to be a father is insane. You're insane.
Hey, there's too much. There's too much of this. There's too much of this. Like, hey, look at me. I got this, that, and the other. Like, start a family. Look what happens. You got Derek White. You got Fred VanVleet. You got these guys who are not playing up to their standards. They have a kiddo, and all of a sudden they turn into a hero, and it's amazing to see. And we need a little bit more of that in our game today. So that's my random rant of the day.
That's actually a brave take. That's actually unbelievable. Draymond, on the other hand, uh, he had kids and then he became insufferable. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think you have to be a point guard 6'2" or under for this rule to apply to you.
Okay, listen up.
Yeah.
Orlando Magic. You got Cole Anthony, you got Markelle Fultz. From what I know, they don't have kids.
I don't know. I actually don't know either.
So guess what? Package them both for another shorter than the 6'2" guard who has kids. Yep. Is that what I'm hearing?
Dude, if Markelle Fultz can take it to that next level, he's a guy. I mean, he's a guy that I like. You know what I mean? Like
he is a guy. He is a guy. No, that was just.
But he's a guy. He's a guy, and we're spitting hoops, and he's a guy that could go from that. You're averaging 13 a game and 6. That's cute. To bam, oh my lord, 18 and 8. What is going on? Clutch shots could be something.
With the birth of one child, he could do that.
That's the trade proposal we're offering here.
Listen, Markelle. You see Franz and Paolo in the back, like begging him, "Yo, bro, gotta have a kid, bro, please."
Come on, start your family.
Bro, is that what the 76ers told him when he was trying to fix his jump shot?
Yeah. Bro, once the Sixers saw what Ben Simmons was up to, they said, this man has no chance. We're over. We're over it.
They said we're moving to James Harden. They said we're moving to James Harden.
Yeah. That's how bad it got.
Insane. Anyways, I've kind of touched on everything I want to talk about. You got any topics that are ringing to mind?
Yeah, nothing comes to mind. We might get into some historical stuff coming up soon, but for now, nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind. Yeah. I guess we'll be back pretty soon, I think, though.
Optimally
is crazy vocab. That was not what I was expecting you to answer with. But yeah, I think we'll be back soon. And thanks for the love on the last two podcasts. They've done pretty well.
Yo, just keep liking, keep subscribing, and if figure it out. Settle down, have a family. Stop getting out there on Twitch streams. All right, come on. What are we doing here? We gotta get back to where we used to be. So that's all I'm saying on that note.
Where we used to be? Wait, that's crazy rhetoric. That's some insane rhetoric.
Look.
Nah, don't get canceled, bro. Don't get canceled. Don't say nothing stupid, bro.
You're right.
Don't get fired.
All I know is there used to be 7-year contracts.
Take me back to 2000, where Gilbert Arenas could play 2 years for the Warriors and sign a 7-year contract with the Wizards a year later, or 2 years.
Literally crazy. Yo, I'd seen that Magic Johnson, did you know his contract?
Wasn't it like a 13?
It was $25 million for 25 years.
Low key,
he was getting paid $1 million a year.
He got robbed.
Dude.
He got robbed.
I mean, yeah, they all did. They all
Yeah.
got robbed back then, of course, which is tough.
Scotty also had some crazy, like 27 million over 9 years.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Pippen,
a
yeah. That
3
that
million
was,
a year.
dude. Yeah, I mean that could be a fun pod topic that we do. We just do some of the wildest contracts back in the day and seeing like what they'd be today.
Yeah, the thing is the cap was jumping so severely all the time back then that like you had no consistency in like contracts. Like Scottie Pippen, when he signed that contract, if I remember correctly, he was like a top 5 highest paid player. But then like year 9 of his contract, it's like 2,000. It's
It was
like
terrible.
I need 15 mil, bro. Like, yeah. And
Yeah,
then that's
and then
why I mean they talked about it in The Last Dance, which everyone should watch. But
yeah, exactly. Sheesh.
anyways,
All
Tony.
right, Max, it's been fun.
It has been fun. It's been a little too fun. Yeah.
It's been a little bit fun, but that's okay. That's what we like to do on this podcast.
Well, I guess
Oh,
we'll see you
Lord.
guys next time.
And until then, we'll be here chilling and spitting hoops.
Peace out, y'all.